Have you ever felt like everything you thought you knew about someone was a lie? That's exactly how I felt the day my world came crashing down. I thought I was preparing for my dream wedding, but instead I found myself walking straight into the biggest betrayal of my life. It all started with a text from my fiancé. His parents, who had repeatedly cancelled on us, were suddenly too sick to attend the wedding. But what I discovered when I went to visit them with a bowl of soup was something that would change everything. Let me tell you how a simple act of kindness led me down a path of revenge, deceit, and a wedding that would be remembered for all the wrong reasons. My fiancé told me that his parents couldn't attend our wedding because they were ill. I brought them soup, but when I arrived at their house, they were perfectly healthy and planning his wedding to someone else the following month. That's when I unintentionally became their wedding planner. I held the chicken soup in my hands, still warm when everything I knew came crashing down. I stared at Tyler's text for the fifth time. Mom and Dad can't make it to the tasting, both down with the flu rain check. It was the third time this month they'd cancelled on us, and something didn't feel right. Tyler and I had been engaged for 8 months, yet his parents had grown increasingly distant whenever wedding plans came up. I scrolled back through our conversations, noticing a troubling pattern. Every time we set a date, they would mysteriously fall ill. I had been too trusting to notice before. As I prepared to share how this betrayal turned me into an unlikely con artist, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Each week we share stories of extraordinary revenge served with professional precision. You won't want to miss what happens when a wedding planner decides to plan something far beyond happily ever after. That Sunday morning, I had woken early to prepare my grandmother's chicken soup recipe, the same one that had comforted me through countless childhood illnesses. The kitchen still smelled of roasted chicken, thyme, and love. When Tyler left for his emergency client meeting, I spent 2 hours chopping vegetables, skimming the broth for perfect clarity. If his parents were truly sick, the soup would help. If not, well, I had other suspicions. Tyler had left his phone charging when he rushed out, something I had never checked before. I trusted him, or at least, I thought I did. As I unplugged his phone to bring it to him, a notification caught my eye. A text from his mother, not directed to Tyler, but to someone saved as Jess in their group chat. All set for the venue walkthrough today at 1. Don't bring Tyler. It's better to discuss final details without him. Remember, his girlfriend still thinks we're sick. My heart dropped. Girlfriend, not fiancé. 8 months of engagement meant nothing with that single word. I knew the address. His parents' colonial-style home in Oakwood Heights, with its perfectly manicured lawn. A lawn that Tyler's mother complained about endlessly. I'd only been invited there twice in our 2-year relationship, always a matter of family privacy. As Tyler explained. The soup still warm against my chest, I drove to their neighborhood, rehearsing explanations in my mind. Perhaps Jess was the wedding planner. Maybe they were planning a surprise. I tried to convince myself, desperately, that there was an innocent explanation. Their silver Lexus was parked beside a white Range Rover I didn't recognize. I approached the side of the house where I could hear voices through an open window. There was no coughing, no signs of illness, just laughter and the clinking of glasses. The Westfield Country Club is perfect, a woman's voice declared. The gazebo overlooks the entire valley. Sunset ceremony, just as you wanted. I recognized Mrs. Williams's laugh. Jessica, you've outdone yourself finding this venue. I'm so glad Tyler finally came to his senses. Jess, not just the wedding planner, but Jessica Morgan, my colleague at Premier Events where I'd worked as a senior coordinator for 5 years. The same woman who'd asked me detailed questions about my wedding vision just last week over lunch, claiming it was research for a client. I crouched beneath the window, the soup growing cold against my chest, and peered through a gap in the blinds. The scene before me was like a nightmare. Jessica sitting at the kitchen island I had heard so much about, flipping through wedding magazines. Tyler's parents, rosy-cheeked and vibrant, looking nothing like the bedridden ill people they claimed to be. Thank goodness we only put down refundable deposits for Tyler's wedding, his father said, refilling champagne glasses. The wedding planner girlfriend was useful for ideas, at least. They laughed, all three of them. My heart shattered as I pressed my back against the siding, afraid my ragged breathing would give me away. The Preston fortune will finally have a suitable match, Mrs. Williams continued. Much better than linking our family name to a glorified party planner. Jessica smiled at the compliment. The wedding's only 4 weeks away. Are you sure she won't cause problems? Once Tyler breaks it off, he'll end things next weekend, Mr. Williams assured her. She's too busy with work to suspect anything. The boys have learned a thing or two from his old man about managing women. More laughter. More champagne. Frozen, I pieced together the shocking truth. Tyler wasn't breaking anything off next weekend. We had made love that morning before he left, kissed my forehead, and reminded me about our dinner plans tonight. We'd been discussing children's names just 2 days ago. I shifted my position to try and hear more, my eyes drawn to the refrigerator calendar visible through the kitchen doorway. Circled in red, the date, exactly 1 month from today, Tyler and Jessica's wedding at 4 p.m. A smaller note beneath it. Honeymoon departure 7 p.m, flight to Bora Bora. Bora Bora. The dream destination I had been researching on his laptop, the one I had mentioned wanting to visit since college. A branch snapped beneath my foot, and the conversation inside stopped abruptly. Did you hear something? Mrs. Williams asked. I didn't wait to be discovered. Clutching the soup container, I hurried back to my car, slipping once on the dewy grass but catching myself before I fell. The soup, still warm against my stomach, felt like the last comfort I would have. As I drove away, I glimpsed the Williams' front door opening in my rearview mirror. I turned the corner before they could see me. Back at my apartment, our apartment, I placed the soup in the fridge, moving mechanically like someone sleepwalking. Tyler's clothes hung beside mine in the closet, his toothbrush next to mine in the bathroom. His ring sat on my finger, catching the afternoon light and throwing fractured rainbows against the wall. My phone chimed with a text from Tyler. Meeting running late, don't wait up. Something inside me hardened. The tears stopped, the shaking subsided. I opened my laptop, creating a new document titled The Williams-Preston Wedding and, below it, in smaller font, planned by the glorified party planner. By the time Tyler came home at midnight smelling of unfamiliar perfume, I already had a plan in place. A plan that would make their wedding unforgettable, just not in the way they expected. Sleep evaded me for 3 nights while Tyler snored beside me. I slipped from the bed to the soft glow of my laptop, diving into the Williams family history. Each revelation peeled back another layer of deception. Tyler's father hadn't built his investment firm from nothing, as they proudly claimed. Court records showed that 3 previous companies had dissolved after investor complaints. There was nothing legally binding, but the pattern was unmistakable. They changed names, rebranded, and found new victims. I came across forum posts from former clients detailing the same tactics, charming promises followed by disappearing funds. What truly unsettled me, however, was discovering Tyler's previous engagement to Melissa Harrington, the daughter of a prominent Boston real estate magnate. Their engagement had made headlines in local papers, only to vanish 6 months later. I found her on social media, now in Seattle, her profile filled with posts about healing from toxic relationships. You're up early, Tyler murmured on the 4th morning, finding me at the kitchen table with coffee. His hand brushed my shoulder with practiced tenderness. Wedding jitters? He asked, though his gaze lingered a little too long. Just finalizing some venue details, I replied, closing the browser tab about his father's second bankruptcy. I was actually thinking about Westfield Country Club for our reception. The gazebo at sunset would be perfect. Westfield? His hand froze on my shoulder, the smile in his voice gone. That's not what we discussed. I know, but it just came highly recommended, I replied, meeting his eyes. A client mentioned it yesterday. Let's stick with the original plan, he said smoothly, recovering quickly. Westfield's overpriced anyway. I nodded, watching him pour coffee, noting how effortlessly he avoided the trap. His lies came as naturally as breathing. Had anything between us ever been real? At work, I kept up the facade of bridal excitement, discussing flower arrangements with colleagues who had no idea my engagement was falling apart. Jessica had called in sick for 3 straight days. Venue shopping with my fiancé, no doubt. During lunch breaks, I worked on my portfolio, highlighting celebrity weddings I'd coordinated, press mentions, and client testimonials, even including photos of events Jessica had nearly assisted with, knowing she would claim them as her own work. Taking on a side client? My boss asked, noticing the portfolio on my desk. Something like that, I replied. A very exclusive wedding. That evening, I called my college roommate Sarah, now a private investigator in Chicago. "You're sure you want this information?" she asked, after I explained the situation. "Sometimes ignorance really is bliss," she said. "I've moved beyond bliss," I answered. "I need facts." The next morning, Sarah sent me a file. Tyler's credit report revealed joint applications with Jessica for a lakefront property, and his parents' financial statements showed 3 liens against their home, along with a pattern of transferring assets between shell companies before major investment deals collapsed. The most damning discovery was that Mrs. Williams had worked at Preston Pharmaceuticals, Jessica's family company, before being dismissed for ethical concerns. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a calculated business merger, complete with a vengeance component. When Tyler left for his gym session that Friday, I sat at our dining table, rehearsing my script. The call needed to sound natural, as though industry gossip had reached me. My hands trembled as I dialed Mrs. Williams' number from Tyler's phone log. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello, Mrs. Williams, this is Megan Lawrence." I kept my voice bright and professional. "I hope you're feeling better after that terrible flu." Silence stretched across the line. "Megan, P-friend," I corrected gently, though I understand there may be some confusion about that. Her breath caught audibly. "What exactly are you calling about?" "I heard through industry connections that you're planning a wedding at Westfield Country Club. As you know, I'm a senior coordinator at Premier Events, and we typically charge $115,000 for complete packages. But, given our almost family connection, I could offer my services at a significant discount." Another pause. "You want to plan Tyler's wedding?" she asked. "I want to plan your event," I clarified. Premier Events has exclusive relationships with the best vendors in the city. No one could deliver the caliber of service I can, especially at the discounted rate I'm offering. "I should discuss this with my husband and Tyler, of course," she said. "Though I should mention that Jessica Morgan is actually my assistant at Premier. She's only been with us for 8 months and doesn't have authorization to book our premium vendors. I'd hate for there to be any confusion about who's qualified to execute an event of this significance." The unspoken threat hung in the air. If they rejected me, I could easily expose Jessica's professional misrepresentations. "Perhaps we should meet," Mrs. Williams finally said. "Monday afternoon?" "Perfect. I'll bring my portfolio." After hanging up, I stood in the stillness of my apartment, my reflection fractured in the mirror across the room. The woman staring back had cold determination in her eyes. I returned to my laptop and created 2 new folders. The first, labelled Williams Preston Wedding, contained subfolders for venues, catering, flowers, and music. The second, password protected, was named Williams Family Evidence, containing financial fraud, personal history, legal vulnerabilities, and Jessica's fabricated resume. When Tyler returned and wrapped his arms around me from behind, I didn't flinch. I leaned into his embrace, a smile playing at my lips as I closed the laptop. "You seem different," he said, studying my face. "Do I?" I turned to kiss him lightly. I just made an exciting new professional connection today. A wedding that might change everything. That's my girl, he said proudly, completely missing the darkness in my eyes. Monday afternoon arrived with a sky the colour of bruises. I parked my car a block from the Williams home, checking my appearance one last time. The woman in the rearview mirror wore a sleek black blazer, professional makeup, and eyes like polished stone. The portfolio in my hands contained every detail of my career: awards, testimonials, and magazine features. What it didn't show was the recording device tucked into my bra, already capturing audio. Mrs. Williams opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mr. Williams stood behind her, his handshake firm as he ushered me into their immaculate living room. Tyler won't be joining us, Mrs. Williams explained, settling onto their pristine white sofa. He's handling some business matters downtown with Jessica. I assume, I replied, keeping my voice professionally neutral. Mr. Williams cleared his throat. So, you know about that situation? Industry circles are small, I replied, opening my portfolio to display photos of celebrity weddings I'd orchestrated. I understand discretion is important here. The tension in the room was palpable as they exchanged glances. Mrs. Williams fidgeted with her diamond tennis bracelet, the one Tyler had told me was a family heirloom, though property records showed it was purchased 3 months ago, likely with investor funds. Our concern, Mr. Williams began carefully, is that this arrangement might be uncomfortable, given your history with our son. I smiled, tilting my head slightly. You mean my current engagement to Tyler? The one he hasn't ended yet? Their discomfort was delicious. Mrs. Williams reached for her water glass. Mr. Williams, with the sharp instincts of an investor, asked, "What exactly are you hoping to achieve here, Megan?" I gave a subtle pause, allowing him to sense the implied warning in the word family. 15% of the wedding budget, the same as any other client, although I'd waive my personal fee for family, I responded. I slid a preliminary contract across the table, watching as they scanned the document, their eyes narrowing. You'll notice I've included a confidentiality clause. What happens during the planning process stays between us. What I didn't mention was the small clause on page 4, which granted me complete creative control and access to all vendors. This seems thorough, Mrs. Williams murmured as she signed where indicated, with her husband following suit, his shoulders visibly relaxing. Wonderful, I said smoothly, standing up. I'll schedule a meeting with Jessica tomorrow to begin. I assume she's still unaware of our personal connection. Their startled expressions confirmed it. Jessica had no idea I was engaged to her fiancé. The next day, I met Jessica at Ellington, California, where the baristas knew me by name. She arrived 20 minutes late, designer sunglasses perched on her head, confused recognition flickering across her face as she spotted me. "Megan, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice nervous. "I'm meeting my wedding planner," I replied, sliding a business card across the table. The Williams family specifically requested my services. Her perfectly contoured face shifted from shock to suspicion. "But you're planning your own wedding. Won't that be too much work?" she asked. "I manage multiple high-profile events at once," I said smoothly. "Tell me about your fiancé. I need to understand his tastes to create a cohesive vision." Jessica launched into a detailed description of Tyler, a successful entrepreneur, investment genius, world traveler. Her version painted him as someone who owned property in Aspen, closed million-dollar deals and came from old money, none of which was true. "How did you meet?" I asked, noting the fabrications. "At a charity gala last year," she said proudly. "He said I was the only woman in the room who caught his eye." I nodded, remembering exactly where Tyler had been that weekend, celebrating our anniversary at a B&B in Vermont. "Have you met his previous girlfriends?" I asked casually. "Just an event coordinator he dated briefly. Nothing serious," she waved dismissively. "Well, for your vision, only Eleanor Botkin will do," I suggested. "I'll arrange a meeting. She normally has a 2-year wait list, but she owes me a favour." Over the next week, I guided Jessica toward the most expensive vendors, each one offering me substantial referral fees, which I documented meticulously. Every selection became part of both my wedding plan and my evidence file. The betrayal stung even more when I found honeymoon charges on my credit card. $150,000 for Bora Bora bungalows, booked under Mr. and Mrs. Tyler Williams. The same day, my bank notified me of a mortgage pre-approval inquiry Tyler had made without my knowledge, using our joint financial information. "Just planning for our future," he said when I casually mentioned the notification at dinner. His smile never faltered as he poured more wine, unaware that I already knew he and Jessica had toured homes together the previous weekend. My breakthrough came during a cake tasting at the Williams home. As Jessica and her future in-laws debated between vanilla bean and champagne flavors, a teenager slouched into the kitchen. "Aunt Karen, Mom's looking for you." The boy stopped, eyes widening as he recognized me. "Aren't you Tyler's fiancé?" he asked, confusion evident. The room froze. Mrs. Williams recovered first, laughing awkwardly. "Adam, this is Megan, our wedding planner." But Adam insisted. "No, Tyler introduced you as his fiancé." Jessica's face drained of color. "What's he talking about?" she asked, voice trembling. "Adam, go help your mother," Mr. Williams ordered sharply. Later, as I packed sample books into my car, Adam approached, hands in his pockets. "They're doing it again, aren't they?" he asked quietly. "Doing what?" I stilled, focusing on this unexpected ally. "The marriage con," he said, his eyes older than his 16 years. "Find someone rich, marry them, divorce them for a settlement. Tyler did it with that Boston girl before you. Uncle Robert's done it 3 times. I leaned against my car. "Tell me everything." And he did, detailing family gatherings where mergers were celebrated, new targets planned, and offshore accounts where settlement money disappeared. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Adam shrugged. "You're the first one to figure it out before getting hurt. Besides," he added, "I recorded Tyler and Dad talking last week about how they're going to clean out Jessica's trust fund after the wedding. Thought you should know." I drove home with Adam's flash drive in my purse, the final piece of evidence I needed. I thought of Jessica's face when she'd asked about that event coordinator. She was as much a victim as I had been, just one who hadn't discovered the truth yet. That night, I updated my folders, one with exquisite wedding plans that would impress every guest, and another with damning evidence that would destroy the family. With Adam's flash drive secured in my desk's hidden compartment, I entered the final phase of my plan. 2 weeks remained until the Williams-Preston wedding, but in reality, it would be the Williams family's last con. The rehearsal dinner was set at Harbour View. Jessica frowned at my suggestion. "It's so understated," she said. "Trust me," I reassured her. Marco's private dining room has hosted 3 presidents. Its exclusivity is precisely why it doesn't advertise. What I didn't mention was that Marco had been my first client when I started at Premier Events. His daughter's wedding had launched my career after a society magazine featured my designs. He owed me, and more importantly, he'd agreed to my unusual requests without question. "We'll need to expand the guest list," I told Jessica and Mrs. Williams during our final planning session. The rehearsal dinner should include all significant business connections. It creates a powerful impression of family unity before the ceremony. Mrs. Williams nodded approvingly. "Robert's investors will appreciate the gesture. And Jessica, you'll want your father's partners there," I added, "especially since he's covering the expenses." My suggestion was met with eager approval. Every potential victim and witness gathered in one room. The video montage I had created was a work of art. Posing as a heartfelt tribute, I had collected family photos and videos from Jessica, Mrs. Williams, and even Tyler, who remained unaware of my hidden agenda. "Could you gather some testimonials from your father's business associates?" I asked Jessica with apparent innocence. "It's about your family legacy. It'll add depth to the presentation in my office." For nights I edited the footage, carefully piecing together what seemed like innocent clips. But a more sinister story revealed itself to anyone with the right knowledge. A quote about Tyler's business acumen, followed by footage of him discussing aggressive investment strategies with Mr. Williams. An engagement announcement from Melissa Harrington, followed by Jessica showcasing the identical ring. Mr. Williams making toasts about family traditions, intertwined with courthouse records subtly in the background. To the untrained eye, it was a touching family tribute. To Jessica's father or his financial advisors, it was a map littered with red flags. "You seem distracted," Tyler remarked one evening as he found me at my laptop. His hands massaged my shoulders, and I fought the urge to flinch. "How's the wedding planning going?" he asked. "Just finishing up a special project," I responded smoothly. "Actually, there's something I've been meaning to ask you." His hands froze. "What's that?" "I got a wedding invitation yesterday from Jessica Morgan at work. Isn't that odd? It's for the same weekend we're thinking of for our ceremony." Tyler's face shifted through a series of emotions: shock, calculation, and, finally, an attempt at confusion. "Jessica from your office? I've only met her a couple of times at company parties." I nodded thoughtfully. "Must be a coincidence. Her fiancé is also named Tyler Williams, I think. Common name," he muttered. "Right," already reaching for his phone. "I'll make a call." As he hurried into the bedroom, I opened my email and sent the carefully composed message I had prepared days earlier. The recipient: Charles Preston, a pharmaceutical mogul and Jessica's overprotective father. "Mr. Preston, as a financial security consultant who has worked with several families in your circle, I feel professionally compelled to bring certain discrepancies to your attention regarding your daughter's engagement. The attached documents highlight concerning patterns in the Williams family's investment history and your future son-in-law's prior relationships. This information is provided anonymously and with the best interests of your family in mind. The attachments included redacted court documents, financial irregularities, and a timeline of Tyler's previous engagements. Nothing illegal, but enough to trigger any father's protective instincts and a businessman's due diligence." Next, I called Eliza Chin, a former college classmate who had since become one of the city's top corporate attorneys. "You want me to be your date to a wedding where you're both the planner and the architect of revenge?" Eliza asked incredulously over lunch. "I prefer justice facilitator," I corrected her, sliding a folder across the table. "Everything's in here: financial fraud, identity misrepresentation, evidence of similar schemes. I need someone who understands the legal ramifications when it all comes to light." Eliza flipped through the documents, her expression growing graver with every page. "This is thorough, but why not expose them now?" "Because a private revelation gives them room to regroup and find new victims," I explained, sipping my water. "A public one, witnessed by their entire social and business circle, ensures they can never do this again." She closed the folder with a decisive snap. "What colour should I wear to complement the devastation you're planning?" "Navy blue," I replied promptly. "It conveys authority when serving cease and desist orders." The pieces of my plan clicked together with clockwork precision. Marco confirmed the rehearsal dinner details, including a separate entrance for my technical team to set up the presentation. Jessica's father had requested a private breakfast with her the morning before the wedding, a result of my anonymous tip. My office wall now displayed a timeline of the event, each moment orchestrated for maximum impact. The night before the wedding, I stood in my apartment, which was still technically mine and Tyler's, though he had been working late, no doubt preparing his exit strategy. Evidence boxes lined one wall. Wedding details covered my dining table. My engagement ring sat in its open box, the diamond catching the light and casting shadows across documents detailing the Williams family's decades of fraud. My phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Save me a dance at the reception." He still had no idea I was the wedding planner. Jessica had no clue about me. The Williams family thought they had neutralized me by keeping me involved professionally but emotionally distant. Tomorrow, everything would change. I slipped the engagement ring back on, not for sentiment's sake, but as a visual reminder for the witnesses of what would unfold. Picking up my garment bag, which contained not a bridesmaid's dress but a tailored black suit, I took one final look at the apartment that had once been filled with love and betrayal. Time for the real celebration to begin, I whispered to the empty room, closing the door on the life that almost was. The dawn broke with a perfect June sky, the kind wedding photographers dream of. I arrived at Westfield Country Club 3 hours before the ceremony, my event coordinator badge on display as I directed the setup crew. No one questioned my authority as I moved between the reception hall ceremony gazebo and the private dining room reserved for the rehearsal dinner. The projector needs to be angled slightly to the left, I instructed the AV technician, a college friend who understood the importance of perfect visibility. Everyone needs to see the screen clearly, especially the tables near the back where the business associates will be seated. In the bridal suite, Jessica was surrounded by her attendants, her father conspicuously absent. Our breakfast meeting must have raised the concerns I intended. Megan, thank God you're here. Daddy's being impossible. He's asking all these questions about Tyler's investment firm and talking about postponing. Can you speak with him? He respects you as a professional. I'll see what I can do, I promised, noting the irony of being asked to smooth over the very doubts I had planted. In the groom's suite, chaos reigned. Tyler paced nervously while his father whispered urgently to 2 men from their firm. The flash drive's contents were clearly making waves. Is everything okay? I asked innocently, clipboard in hand. We're starting in 19 minutes. Tyler turned to face me, shock and confusion flickering across his face as recognition set in. Megan, what are you? Just doing my job, I replied smoothly. Premier Events took care of everything, and I watched as the reality sank in, his face draining of colour. The Williams-Preston wedding was now receiving my personal touch, just as I had promised. Mr. Williams was the first to recover, stepping in between us. There's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding at all, I replied calmly. I've understood everything perfectly for weeks. Your son's multiple engagements, your family's financial arrangements, Jessica's trust fund, Tyler's supposed client meeting that was actually a venue tour. I checked my watch. Speaking of which, I need to finalise the rehearsal dinner arrangements. The slideshow needs my attention. I turned to leave, savouring the panic erupting behind me. Megan, wait! Tyler lunged for my arm, but I sidestepped with ease. The time for waiting is over, Tyler. I waited while you planned a wedding with another woman. I waited while you charged a honeymoon to my credit card. I waited while you lied about being with a sick client when you were actually shopping for her ring. My voice was detached, professional. Now it's your turn to wait for what comes next. The rehearsal dinner started precisely at 7 p.m. Marco had outdone himself, transforming the restaurant's private room into an elegant space fit for the society pages. Crystal glasses caught the light from chandeliers above, casting prisms across the white tablecloths. Jessica's father sat rigidly beside her, with his financial advisor strategically placed nearby. The Williams family entered as a unit, scanning the room with practiced smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Tyler looked physically ill when he spotted me talking to Eliza near the bar. Welcome, everyone, I announced once all 60 guests had seated. Before dinner is served, the Williams family has prepared a special presentation celebrating the couple's journey. The lights dimmed, and I pressed the remote in my pocket. The projector hummed to life and scenes began to play just as expected. Childhood photos, family gatherings, graduations, and proud smiles that filled the room. Then came the subtle shift. Tyler's voice, narrating his entrepreneurial journey, overlapped with court documents showing his father's first bankruptcy. A clip of Mrs. Williams toasting to family traditions faded into newspaper clippings about investor complaints. The timeline of Tyler's past engagement appeared alongside identical romantic gestures performed with Jessica. Murmurs rippled through the guests, and I noticed Mr. Preston's expression harden as bank statements flashed, followed by documents revealing shell companies the Williams family had established. "What is this?" Tyler stood abruptly, reaching for the projector cable, but it was too late. Adam's recording played clearly through the speakers. "Once we're married, her trust fund transfers automatically. Dad says we can clear at least $3 million before anyone notices the discrepancies." Stunned silence fell. Jessica's perfectly made-up face streaked with tears. "Is this true?" she asked, her voice trembling. Before Tyler could respond, Charles Preston rose to his full height. "I've heard enough. As of now, I'm withdrawing all financial support for this wedding. Jessica, we're leaving." His voice carried the authority of a man used to command. "Dad, you can't," Jessica cried. "It's over," he replied coldly. "My attorneys will be in touch. Mr. Williams, I suggest you retain competent counsel." The room erupted into chaos. Business associates rushed to make calls, investors demanded answers, and relatives whispered urgently. Some people snapped photos of the still image on the screen, documenting the Williams family's latest financial manipulation. Tyler fought through the crowd toward me, rage contorting his face. "You planned this whole thing," he hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've simply revealed the truth," I replied evenly. "Something you never valued." "I loved you," he insisted desperately. I smiled, then removed my engagement ring and placed it in his hand. "No, Tyler, you loved what you thought I could give you. There's a difference." Eliza stepped forward, handing him an envelope. "Cease and desist order, restraining order, and notification of civil action for financial fraud and identity theft. Consider yourself served." As we walked out, Jessica caught my arm. "You knew all along," she said, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Would you have believed me?" I asked gently. "Some truths we have to see for ourselves." Her father led her away while police officers entered the room. Someone had clearly called them once the financial allegations became apparent. 6 months later, I unlocked the door to my new office in the financial district. The sign on the frosted glass read, "Lawrenceville Events," in elegant gold lettering. My assistant had already arranged fresh flowers and prepared coffee for our first client meeting. On the wall behind my desk hung 2 framed items: my business license and a newspaper article with the headline, "Society Wedding Scandal Leads to Fraud Convictions." The photo showed the Williams family being escorted from court, their faces shielded from cameras. My phone chimed with a text from Adam. "Just got into NYU with a full scholarship. Thanks for the recommendation letter." I smiled and set my coffee down to reply. Helping him had been one unexpected bright spot in the aftermath, the youngest Williams family member breaking the cycle. When my first clients, a genuine couple celebrating their 10th anniversary, arrived, I greeted them with professional poise and wisdom. "Tell me about your journey together," I invited them, opening a fresh portfolio. "The real story is always worth celebrating."